Hello and welcome to the Street Crime UK YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Today we look at the teenager who has been jailed for 25 years for shooting a gang associate at close range in a residential street in Coventry. Mr Maphosa, 19, shot Bailey Atkinson with a sawn-off shotgun following an argument in Pinley Fields, Stoke Aldermoor, a street where Mr Atkinson and Mr Maphosa's parents both lived. Judge Sylvia de Bertodano told Mr Maphosa he was being given an extended sentence in order to protect the public in the future, after he was found guilty of attempted murder and possessing the shotgun with intent to endanger life. At the sentencing hearing at Warwick Crown Court, Judge de Bertodano said the sentence in this must send a clear message that if you associate yourself with gangs armed with guns and you use them with the intention of killing people, you will go to prison for a very long time. Mr Maphosa was sentenced to 25 years behind bars for attempted murder, and because it is part of an extended sentence, he will have to serve at least 2/3 of that period in prison, and will then only be released when the parole board considers it safe to do so. Once he is released, he will be on licence for the rest of the prison term, and then for a further 5 years. Mr Maphosa was sentenced to 13 years for the firearm charge, which will run concurrently. Doctors were able to save Mr Atkinson's arm from being amputated following the blast, but the court heard how he had been left with permanent injuries as well as a significant psychological impact. Mr Maphosa, who was 18 at the time of the shooting, had denied a charge of attempted murder, claiming that someone else was responsible for the shooting, but a jury found him guilty by a majority of 10-2. He was also convicted of possessing the shotgun with intent to endanger life, following a trial which relied heavily on CCTV footage from a camera on the opposite of the road to the shooting. During the trial, prosecutor Peter Greaves-Smith told the jury the background had its roots in the gang culture in Coventry, which both young men were involved. He said the two main gangs in Coventry were C2, based in the CV2 area of the city, and RB7, each of which have about 40 members aged around 15 to 18. Both gangs have taken part in violent crime towards each other, which was involved the use of firearms, although both Mr Maphosa of Hamilton Road, Worcester and Mr Atkinson were associates of the C2 gang. But this ongoing dispute, which has involved the use of firearms, is used by Mr Maphosa was able to take possession of a lethal weapon at such short notice, the prosecutor had said. Both young men had previously been victims of stabbings, but neither had cooperated with the police over their incidents. Bailey Atkinson was severely wounded. Judge de Bertodano told Mr Maphosa, "You could have killed him," which was the verdict of the jury. It was your intention to do just that. Of course, there's a background to this offence, and one that is sadly familiar to the courts. A background of gang culture so prevalent in the Coventry area, and a cause of so much local serious crime. You and Bailey Atkinson were both associates of what's known as the C2 gang. Only you and he know what led to this incident, because his affiliation was so strong. Even after suffering such serious injuries, he did not cooperate with police and did not give evidence in court. You understand that better than anyone. When stabbed in July 2019, you too refused to assist police, and as a result, no one was charged with that offence. In turn, you were confident you could commit these offences without anyone telling police what had happened. As a mark of the confidence and invulnerability to prosecution, you committed these offences in public, in a residential street at 10 PM, in full view of other young men, with Bailey Atkinson outside the house. The judge told Mr Maphosa his potentially deadly actions were aggravated by the fact his parents and siblings were home at the time, and his refusals to stay away from crime and gangs after being found alternative accommodation in Worcester while under a supervision order. CCTV footage on the evening of September 2nd, 2020 showed a discussion between Mr Maphosa, Bailey Atkinson and at least 3 other males. At the time, Mr Atkinson was sat on a wall outside his home in Pinley Fields, where Mr Maphosa's parents also lived. At around 10 PM of the day of the shooting, Mr Maphosa got a taxi to an address in Bryanston Close, where he collected a black bag before being driven back to Pinley Fields. On returning, he and Mr Atkinson exchanged gestures consistent with an argument before Mr Maphosa went inside with the bag, in which Mr Greaves-Smith said was the shotgun. Mr Maphosa came back out and, as the argument continued, he walked down the front garden with the shotgun in his hand and fired at Mr Atkinson at close range. Speaking in mitigation for Mr Maphosa, Ian Jobling referred to Mr Maphosa's physical and mental immaturity as mitigation for the judge to consider the lower end of sentencing options under the new guidelines now applicable. So what are your thoughts about Mr Maphosa and Mr Atkinson's altercation, which ultimately led to a close range shooting with a sawn-off shotgun? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay safe.